shut your mouth!
Welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. And now, Duke Durango. Hey everybody, welcome to the Duke You Suck podcast. I'm very, very proud to have my friend and guest, ladies wrestling phenomenon, Gisele Shaw. Gisele, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. Hey guys, how's it going?
So as you guys could tell, she's one of the smiliest people I've ever seen in my life, especially in a wrestling locker room.
Oh, thank you.
You know, where things can get a little humdrum, sometimes politics and whatnot get people down. But literally, Gisele, there's never not a smile on your face. You're one of the easiest people to be around.
You.
Anyways, what have you been up to? How are you? I know obviously the last time I seen you, you were in Calgary, you were local. Under the heading of where are you now? What's going on? What are you doing these days?
So I am in Wales now in the United Kingdom. I know. I didn't really know about this until I came here, but United Kingdom's actually it consists of 4 countries.
Okay.
Did you know that?
For our viewers that don't know, I did, but for our viewers,
okay, yeah. So it's England, Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland. So I didn't know that because I was like, oh yeah, like I'm in Wales, and I was like, oh, like where is that? You know, like I thought it was just like United Kingdom. That's it. So yeah, no, it's pretty cool. I love it here. I moved here about like 2-3 years ago.
Okay.
And yeah, so I was living in Toronto, as you would say it.
Yeah.
And and yeah, so the last time I did see you was that 5 years ago?
Probably, yeah, it'd be 2016, 2017.
Yeah. So I had like 2 years, after I started wrestling, had 2 years there, and then thought like, you know what, it's time to move and like go to a bigger market.
Okay.
And then so I went to Toronto, and then I was there for a year, and then I just thought like I went to a Pete Dunne seminar actually.
Oh, okay.
And and Pete's like, hey, like, have you ever trained in like the UK? I was like, no, like never been, but I would love to. He's like, yeah, like I think like you would do well there.
Right.
So I said, okay, cool. And I thought about it and just thought, why not? Like take a chance, go for an adventure, like what do you have to lose?
Sorry, I'm really sorry.
No, you're fine.
This.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Carlos wants to say hi. Look at buddy. Go say hi to the people.
Hi.
Yeah, sorry. He'll sit here and meow and scratch at me until I pick him up. So I apologize.
So I came here 3 years ago, I think 2-3 years ago, and I was only expecting to come here for 2 months.
Okay.
And yeah, just to like test out the waters and see what it's like. Kind of.
Do you notice you're picking up an accent? Do you hear it?
Did I say water?
Oh, you sure did. I'm sorry. I don't mean to stop your train of thought, but yeah, there's a couple words.
No.
It's picking up the accent.
It's so funny because I think it was like Taya, like Kira.
Yeah.
So she came here and we had a match, and then I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, what you been up to? No, we're catching. I was like, yeah, like it's Saturday, and she's like, excuse me, what? And then I was like, what do you mean? And she's like, what did you just say? I was like, Saturday? She's like, you mean, okay, hold on. I have to think about it. She said Saturday. And I'm like,
there you go.
Yeah. I was like, yeah, Saturday.
That's what
she's like, oh, yeah. She's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
So it doesn't take that long to start picking up that accent.
No, because I don't know, like the water or water, as we would say.
Water.
Yeah. Water. Yeah. It's not like when I say it now, it's like, oh, it's kind of disgusting. Like, yeah. Or when I say what, like what, I don't say what. I have a hard time now saying what, because I feel like I'm just I don't know if I'm like enunciating it or like I'm just like, it's so weird to say it now, but it's so much easier to say what,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, what's funny is we used to tease you. You know the Highlander, right? Robert McManus. So he
Yes.
came from Scotland, and I was actually the first Canadian he met down in the dungeon. And I got him a job helping me. Like he was helping me. I owned a little landscaping company, and I would tease him about the way he would talk. And that's one thing
Yeah.
was water. He would always like, hey, pass the water. And we'd always just tease him. He'd be
Water.
like, oh, sorry, let me say it. Water. Like he would make fun of us. So yeah, it's so funny.
It's funny because like well, speaking of water, I don't know why I'm air quoting that because I'm actually speaking of water. But a friend of mine that I used to train with, I lived with him and his fiance at the time. They're married now, for a month. And when we went to Denny's, when we were at Storms in Calgary, he would be like, "Excuse me, can I have a glass of water?" And I was like, "Water." I'm like, "Ew, like what is that?" You know what I mean?
That's not even a word.
Yeah, I'm like, water. I'm like, no, I don't think so. But yeah, like, it's so weird because you can go like you can travel like 30 minutes like away from where, let's say, where I'm living right now,
Right.
and they have a different accent.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's not like because they ask me all the time. They're like, "Oh, in Canada, like, does everyone have a different accent?" I'm like, "No, I think we all sound the same. Like, unless you're French, then you'll have the
or
French
the very
accent."
East Coast.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
I didn't know how to do like a bye or
Lord
bye.
Lamp and geezer, man.
Exactly, yeah. But that's it. But here it's like everyone they have a different accent. It's so weird.
That's so interesting, especially because it's not like a huge spread out place, right? Like I think I remember hearing
No,
one time, and I could be full of shit, but for some reason I thought I heard that England could fit in Alberta 8 times.
I think so. It's quite small.
Yeah, like it's so then you figure, yeah, and you've got like these different pockets with different accents. It's actually really interesting.
Yeah, it's so weird, but like it's really nice here. I love it here.
Is that now? Do you find, and this is people think Canadians are so nice, and some of them are, but some of them are dicks. We can be honest. Do you find the people
Oh
there just
yeah.
nicer in general?
So they're nicer to me because it's like, when you have foreigners, for example, come
Right.
to Canada, and then, oh, sorry, a little funny story. So how, let's say a British person comes to Canada,
Right.
and then you start speaking to them, and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, like where's your accent from? Like where are you from?" And you're so fascinated by it.
Right.
And they like have this spiel like, "Oh yeah, I'm from this, blah blah blah," and you're like, "Oh my god, this is so cool." So coming here, I was a foreigner. And I don't know why I keep doing that. Like, that's so weird. I am. I am a foreigner. So yeah, coming here, and then I'd go to the store. I'd be like, "Excuse me, like, where's your, I don't know, French red hot sauce?" And then they're like, "Oh my God, like, where's your accent from?" And I'm like, "What accent?" And they're like, "No, like your accent, like, where is that from?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm from Canada." And then they're just so fascinated by it. They keep asking me. And wherever I go, it's like the exact same question every single time that I open my mouth. They're just like, "Oh my God, like where are you from?" You know what I mean? It's like I've never heard of, you know what I mean? Like
I've
it's
never heard
so weird
anyone
because it's
talk
not
that
like the
way.
norm. Yeah. But and then like there's my question. I'm like, "Okay, like you don't care about where the French red hot sauce is? Okay, cool. Let's talk about where I'm from."
Yeah. I don't need that hot sauce anyways.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, we'll just chat here.
Yeah.
But no, it's but like I said to myself, I was like, you know what? Like when I go back to North America and I hear someone that, they have an accent, like I'll never be like, "Oh, excuse me, like where's your accent from?" Because I get it here all the time, and I'm like, it's the exact same question all the time, and I know people are just, like they don't know me obviously, and they don't know that like I've been spoken to by someone, and they just asked me the exact same question. So like, yeah, like, I should just entertain it and be like, "Oh yeah, cool." But then I'm like, "Can we like ask me a different question, please?"
You probably
Like,
hear it. Yeah. Now that you're saying it, you probably hear it literally anytime you talk to somebody you don't know, you get that question.
oh, they're so fascinated by it. They're just like, "I love your accent." I was like, "No, like you have the accent. I don't have an accent.
Yeah.
I speak English."
I speak Canadian. I don't know what you guys do.
I speak exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's really funny.
That is pretty wild. Hey, like it's, and what's do you get accused or not accused? That's definitely the wrong word. Is there a lot of presumption?
Whoa.
Yeah. Is there a lot of presumption when you talk to people that you're American? So I know when I went to Europe, everybody, you'd have to tell them, no, I'm Canadian. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Some of them think that I am American, but I also, when I went to school in the Philippines, because I was born there.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went, I mean, like, so the Philippines was colonized by the Americans. So they
Right.
taught us like American English.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, so when I came to Canada, actually, they thought that I was American because I was taught like American English.
You'd finish all your sentences with "huh" instead of "a."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but now I'm like, hey, you know, and then so yeah, it's funny because you know some people do, they can understand, you know, they can differentiate the
Right.
difference between like the American and Canadian accent.
Oh, is that
But first
okay?
thing immediately, yeah, but first thing immediately, like some people, majority of the people, they're like, oh, like, are you American? I'm like, no.
We were actually
Yeah.
in Amsterdam shortly. I want to say it wasn't long, maybe a year after Trump got elected. And my wife has
Mhm.
family there, and we were out with her cousin for her birthday. And one of her friends, she did have American friends visiting. I'll defend the friend, but literally, she shook my hand, was introduced to me, shook my hand, and started giving me shit about Donald Trump. And so, of course, I did correct her, right? I was just like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he has some pretty good policies. I just tried stirring her up,
Yeah.
and then she got mad and walked away. And then came back to me about
Oh,
5 minutes later. And she's like, I'm really sorry. I just met you. I shouldn't start off that way. Blah, blah. I said, oh, sister, don't worry about it. I don't care. I'm actually Canadian. And she was
yeah.
a little, she told me to F off. She was a little bit, because I made her feel bad, right? Like, well, know who you're talking to before you start giving me crap.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
so it's so funny when you say Amsterdam because being based here now, every time that I go to North America, I have to go to Amsterdam
Oh, okay.
and fly from there. But I've never ever been to the city. So like I'd fly there. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to Amsterdam. But then I'd just like be in the airport, like
Hanging
Schiphol.
out.
And I'm just, oh yeah. But it's such a beautiful airport. Like,
Well,
um,
you know what I found cool about Amsterdam was the stuff that people will never tell you about Amsterdam. And maybe this happens in other places in Europe too, but my wife and I walked so much we actually wore out a pair of shoes the first week. Like we just walked everywhere. And so well, we went into this shoe store to buy shoes, and there was this salesman that I could only describe as a black living statue of David. This guy was perfect. Like he could have been selling my wife rocks for her shoes and she would have bought them. He was ridiculously good looking. So my wife's dealing with him as I'm walking around the store. I'm looking for shoes, and they have a treadmill in the shoe store. So you put on your shoes and go run on the treadmill to
okay.
make sure it's the right shoe. And I thought, it's just these kinds of little things that really made Amsterdam cool. And then
Yeah.
even when we landed, we walked out of the airport and our taxi was a Tesla.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Like right away, I was like, okay, this is a different place. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's very, very cool. And you'd fit in. I didn't fit in because it's the most beautiful population I've actually ever seen in my life. Like
Oh, stop.
oh, seriously, the men and women in Amsterdam, I can't explain it to you, Gisele. You have to go see it. It's like you'll literally walk out of the airport and go, what is this place? Where did all these people come from?
Like, where do these models come from?
It's legit. It's a country full of models, and not just
Yeah.
male and female. I'm comfortable enough to admit there are some very handsome men. It's like, what is this place? Why are we here? Yeah, so I
I
guess I found
definitely
it's good.
have to.
Well, it's good I married a Dutch girl, I guess, because I definitely found out
Ooh.
yeah, my wife's family's Dutch. And that was funny too, because she's very blonde, kind of green blue eyes. So a lot of times if
Yeah.
we went into a store, they would actually assume she's Dutch. The only difference is she wasn't
Yeah.
like 5'10 like all the other Dutch ladies.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would immediately start speaking Dutch to her. And if I went up to the counter, they'd immediately speak English to me. It was so I found that
That's
cool.
so funny.
Yeah. So
Does she
no,
speak Dutch then?
not even a little bit, just the swear words.
Oh, okay.
Because
Well, yeah.
her dad came here. Her dad's family came here when her dad was 2.
Yeah.
But he had, if I tell you, 13 brothers and sisters, and the age gap was wide enough that I for sure one of his sisters stayed back in Amsterdam when the whole family moved here. So
Okay.
she still has cousins and stuff there. But yeah, we don't speak
That's
we don't
crazy.
speak any Dutch. Like I say, just the swear words.
I feel like that's like, when you meet like someone and then they speak a different language and then, you just ask them like, oh, hey, like, can you teach me some words? And they're like, yeah, sure. Like, what do you want to learn?
Yeah.
You're like, oh yeah, like I'll teach, and they're like, oh, like just like swear words. And then like, you know, you're walking around, you're like, oh yeah, like I can speak this language. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh really? Like, what have you learned? And they're like, oh, it's this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
I know 5 swear words in Dutch. What do you know?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I speak Dutch.
But the other weird thing in Amsterdam is they actually get American TV. So most of the TV I watched when I was there, if we were watching television, it was like Friends in English with Dutch subtitles. It wasn't dubbed
That's pretty
over.
cool.
And but when you go there, everyone speaks English because their TV, if they want to watch TV, they have to speak English.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. Enough about me. Let's talk about you a little bit. So now, yeah, that's just fun stuff. Yeah, but okay, so you left Canada, went to Wales. Now, did you find there was a lot more work in the UK?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
You know, NXT UK is here. So I came here to, like it was only for 2 months, supposedly.
Right.
And then, you know, before I came here, I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, this is what I'm gonna do. Like, I had a game plan. And then when I got here, like, execute. You know, like you have 2 months to show what you can do. Right. So like make the most of it.
Yeah.
You know?
You got one shot kind of thing.
Literally, I'm like, you know, like literally like, lined everything up and just like making sure that like when I come here, like I make a huge wave, like a freaking tsunami. Right. That they're just like, okay, like who's this person coming in, you know?
And we got to keep her here. We can't let her go home in 2 months.
Well, exactly. So that was because you don't know, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like people like venture around here and then, you know, it's just like it doesn't happen. And I was like, you know, I was hopeful because I try to be positive as much as possible. Right. But like when it comes to the wrestling business, like either, you know, like it's gonna take off or not gonna take off.
Well, there's so many bullshit politics in wrestling, right? Like it's the weirdest. You know, if it was solely based on merit, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I'd probably have to go through media relations somewhere to talk to you.
Oh, stop it.
No, it's true. I mean, I don't want to piss on any of the lady wrestlers that are out there making a living at it, or any other wrestler for that matter. Because I never begrudge anybody's success. But there are a lot of people like you, and I have no problem saying this, that are as good, if not better, than a lot of people that are signed to a lot of major companies. Do you know what I mean? So never think like, if you ever think that you're not signed, it's nothing to do with talent, right? Like it's just probably timing and or politics, because there's a lot of it.
Yeah. You know? No, like I just thought about that. And, you know, I think like everyone has a different journey, right? And like for me, I've always thought that, like I've always thought, and I always kind of like beat myself up for it a lot. Where I'm like, why am I not signed? Why am I, you know, and people like ask, and the worst is like when people ask me and they're like, when are you signing? And I'm like, hold on, like, you know what? Like I'm making them wait. So that's why I'm not signing. You know what I mean? That's
I decided at this point they're not ready for me.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just gonna work the indies for a bit.
Yeah. I prefer these 75 pound a night gigs.
Exactly. So I just, you know, I'm like, like I've really thought about it like over time, and you know, you forget to like, because we're so focused, like this is where I want to be. Yeah. So instead of like enjoying the journey, I'm always thinking like, you know what, like this is where I want to be. This is it, blah, 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 all this stuff. And if it's not working, then it's like, what am I doing wrong? Instead of being like, oh, you know, I'm like, I'm having fun right now. So like, why am I not enjoying it? You know, like, why am I not living in the moment rather than just, you know, always thinking like, comparing myself to other people, you know, and being like, why are they signed before me? Like, you know, everyone has a different journey. And like you said, like, it's about time. So maybe it just wasn't my time. And, you know, like my time will come and I'll just need to be patient. And, you know, at the time, like I'm building my brand and like, that's all I can do is, you know, better myself, be the best version that I can be. And when that opportunity comes, then I'll be ready, like mentally, physically, emotionally, like everything. And then it's just like, you know, kill it.
Well, excuse me, I think you definitely have the right attitude. I kind of heard something, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, you know, reading some of these dirt sheets and crap like that I'm kind of hearing that the PC that the WWE started, and again, I don't want to go, you know, they've invested a lot of money there and a lot of the talent there, but maybe isn't turning out the level of talent they thought it would as quickly as they would. And so I started to really think about, okay, why would that be? Right. They have all the facilities in the world. They have all the sort of infrastructure there. They've got the most experienced, top level trainers on the planet, guys that have done everything we would aspire to do, working with the young people that are there. So why aren't they turning out in my opinion, it should just be stud after stud after stud after stud. And it's not happening. And I kind of came to the conclusion then is because they need, and they haven't realized it yet. Eventually, at some point, the WWE is going to start selling wrestling again, and it'll come around. But at that point, if you look who's been the most successful people there, kind of in the last 10 years, even, they've all been people that weren't WWE people. They were people that built a brand, and I'll use AJ Styles as a really good example. They built a brand on the independents, then went to the WWE. Even Seth Rollins was a big star in the independents before he went to FCW or went to, then to NXT. So I think that experience that you're gaining, because I think some people can go too early, and it's too hard because you don't have, the wealth of experience that you have, or even the perspective, like you say, if you're, let's say you do get signed and you're down at that PC and you see people around you get called up before you do. And then suddenly you start to, like you say, question, well, why am I not getting called up? Well, it's maybe just the timing's not right, So I think you're definitely carrying the right attitude, and your work ethic from what I've seen. And don't think I don't watch your matches. Don't think I don't kind of keep an eye on people, your work since you've left PWA is not that it was bad at PWA. I don't want to come across the wrong way, but it's just matured. Do you know what I mean? Like you tell a different story than you were telling the last time I seen you wrestle, and
thank you. I appreciate that.
Oh, well, congratulations, because it's your hard work. Do you know what I mean? Like to see people like you, and I've had the question, same questions you had when like TJ and Harry got signed and APOC, and these were guys that I was around, I think I was wrestling for 3-4 years before APOC even got in the dungeon. Of course, then he starts working out with Tokyo Joe, and him and some of these guys advance past me. And people say, like, why didn't you get signed? And like, it just wasn't kind of meant to be for me. But I also don't begrudge that success to those guys. Where I know there's a lot of people that get like, well, why didn't I get signed? Or, what's wrong with me? It's kind of like, you know what? Every one of those guys, I take a little bit of measure in their success because I worked with them all. So all those little things they worked with are what got them there. So if you say like Jordan or Gisele, oh, you're not in the big, so you're not successful. No, but the people I worked with, I helped get them there. So I'll take that as a measure of success too,
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
that's a nice positive attitude towards that. I really like that.
Well, the thing is, wrestling's an individual sport, right? So, but it's also a team thing. When you can't, even as an amateur wrestler, when it comes down to the tournaments, you're out on the mat, you're by yourself. It's you and a coach. Win, lose, or draw, it's all on you. But you need good training partners. You need, you kind of need positive encouragement in the locker room.
Yeah.
And pro wrestling's the same. And I think even probably more importantly in ladies pro wrestling, that you guys kind of encourage each other more than the men do, because guys are just doing their thing. And I think for ladies, it's a little more important to kind of have each other's backs.
No, definitely. I think, it's, we do live in a society, where, well, first of all, the wrestling business is so male dominated.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. So I feel like, I've been in situations where, the men try to turn you against the other women.
Right.
and make something out of it. Like, that's not even there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Where I'm just like, okay, no, you're not going to do that to me. It's not happening.
And good for you for recognizing that, because a lot of people don't, right? A lot of people don't see the kind of the underhandedness that can be in this industry.
Yeah. I think it's also maturity, right? I've been guilty of it, when I was younger. And I'm still young.
We're all still learning.
Yeah, exactly. So I definitely have been situations where I'm just I bite, and then I've given them what they wanted. That I gave them that reaction. But I feel like now where I am in my life, that's not happening. And I'm all about camaraderie, teamwork, and especially that now women's wrestling is getting so much attention that it's not you're not there for yourself, because if the whole division flourished, that means you're going to flourish as well, you know? And again, it's the timing thing, you know, like you might not get that spotlight now, but if those two people or how many people are, and then they're succeeding, then that means that that door is going to stay open for you, like when it's your time. And then just when it's your time, knock it out the park.
Well, and that's exactly like you sort of hear the old cliche, a rising tide floats all ships. Do you know what I mean? And when you look at sort of once they started that hashtag give women a chance movement, you know, and they're getting these 30-second matches on Raw, and all of a sudden, you know, people can put whatever spin on this program they want, when probably one of the best things that happened to women's wrestling was that Nia Jax broke Becky Lynch's nose. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, Becky didn't roll out of the ring. She didn't sell the life out of it. She continued on with her match. And I think the importance to that, especially for, like you say, in a male dominated industry, where she continued on through injury, and a lot of men are like, oh, you got to suck it up and blah, blah, blah. And to see that the ladies suck it up just as much, if not more so than the guys, because a 200-pound guy, and you know, I'll use myself as an example, 215-pound guy getting slammed into the ring. I know what that feels like, especially in that, you know, and you'll identify with this, that goddamn PWA ring in Calgary.
That was different.
Oh, right. So one of the reasons people say to me, like, how come you're so fat? Just so I can get the ring to flex. Right. So then somebody like you that weighs like, you know, 110 pounds, I'd always watch you guys bump and think that must hurt so bad.
It hurts. Yeah. You know, it's like, especially for me, like I bruise so easy.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I've had like looks, you know, like, because, you know, you don't advertise and you're like, oh yeah, like, hi, I'm a pro wrestler going out. And then like, I'd go to Tim Hortons. I have to say Tim Hortons. And like, you know, and they'd see like my bruise and they're like, you okay? Like, do you need help? You know what I mean? And I'm like, no, it's okay. Like, I'm a pro wrestler. Like, I'm fine, you know? But yeah, no, it's pretty crazy.
Right. Yeah. The kind of what happened to you.
Yeah.
I was actually in a play about wrestling years ago, and I don't know who had been working, and somebody chopped the shit out of me. And for whatever reason, I was trying on some wardrobe for this play, and my chest was just bruised up. And it was actually a play about wrestling, so I was completely typecast. And so I take off my shirt, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, what happened to your chest?" And I'm like, "Oh, that wrestling you guys all tell me is fake. That this is from the fake wrestling I did 3 days ago." Do you know what I mean? Exactly. So like you say, you're almost justifying these, like, no, I don't need the special latte that means my husband's hitting me. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
But then do you find also there's a measure of pride in that? You know, that you're doing something. I mean, you think of the cross section of males that are willing to wrestle, and I will say anyone can do it. It's a matter of whether or not you're willing to. So is it a source of pride for you that you're doing things not only a lot of men won't do, but there's a very small cross section of ladies that be willing to do it as well?
It is. It's, you know, now that you say that. So I went to Greece, I think it was last year, and I was allowed, by the way. Like, just so we have this, I wasn't breaking the law.
Right.
Yeah, you know, I was allowed, and so went there, and then, you know, people like, oh hey, like, how's it going? You know, like, you make friends and stuff, and you know, they would ask me like, oh, like, what do you do for a living? And I'm like, oh, I'm a pro wrestler. And then they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I'm a pro wrestler. They're like, oh, we never would have thought that, you know, like, we would have thought like you're like a model or something. And I'm like, what do you mean? You know, like women aren't supposed to be able to like wrestle or something. You know what I mean? Like, we're not supposed to get into like a physical sport because we're supposed to be like so dainty and we need help changing the light bulbs.
Yeah, the sandwich is needed made, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So would you like one?
Yeah, Knuckle Sandwich. I actually said, I had a kid, we were wrestling out at some, you know, drunk rodeos are always the funnest, but the scariest. And I told some 13-year-old girl in the crowd was hollering at me, you know, I'm guessing her age. And I turned around, and because I was also just such a dick, I just turned around, I was like, hey, you know what? There's a kitchen back there. Why don't you go make me a sandwich? And directly on the opposite side of the ring, there's like this 16-year-old boy stands up, takes off his jacket, and tries climbing the ring to fight me because I was rude to this young lady. So there's part of me like, don't let that kid in the ring, because if he comes at me, I have to do something. But also, I was so impressed that he was defending this girl. He didn't know her. I was just being rude, and he was going to hold me accountable.
I love that. Like, we need more of that in the world.
Well, and that's actually, let's talk about that for a minute. Or as long as we want to. Um, I want to talk about male accountability in wrestling.
Right.
Recently, I'm new to Instagram. I've only been on, I think, for a month, maybe. You know, I have a walloping 147 followers, I think. But one thing I do, I don't follow a ton of ladies. I follow yourself, Natalia, some of the other lady wrestlers that I know. And one thing I've noticed is that, you know, let's be honest, most women in wrestling are attractive ladies.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the appeal to men is some of that sex appeal. But one thing I've really noticed, it's one thing for a guy to look at an attractive lady and say, wow, that, you know, that Gisele Shaw, she's a pretty lady, and simply acknowledge that. But some of the comments that kind of you see on there are a little frightening. And I think we as men maybe need to do a little more to hold each other accountable. Is that something, you know, do you experience a lot of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for without swearing. I'm just going to call it simple. Do you experience a lot of grossness between your Twitter and your Instagram and just guys being just, you know, across the line constantly?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I've had, you know, fans, which is okay. So I feel like it's so disappointing sometimes, you know, from a wrestler's point of view, because I feel, I mean, I don't know what, like, with, you know, how women treat the men wrestlers, or you know, I don't ask people like, hey, like, what's your inbox like? But I'm
Right.
speaking from my own, you know, inbox. And it's almost, no, not almost, it's actually really sad that, like, if you're a wrestling fan and you were my fan, you know, I feel like if I posted a bikini photo and I'm getting a lot of likes, when I post a wrestling photo, like, you should be liking those, you know what I mean? And I see you, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's like, yeah, so it shouldn't just be like, oh yeah, like, we're here because of the bikini photos and stuff. And, you know, like, I mean, like, I grew up watching wrestling, you know, and thinking like, oh yeah, like, that's, you know, like, really cool, like brown panties and stuff and whatever. And you know what? Like, I'm not gonna lie. I was like, oh yeah, cool. Like, why not? Like, that's, you know, like, that's what the industry was at the time. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like, I'm gonna get wrestling trained. And I was like, if I have to do brown panties matches, then so be it. You
Hey,
know what I mean? But it's like,
for $1 million a year, I'll do bra and panty matches.
yeah, you know what I mean? No, yeah. But like, that was it. I think it's pretty cool. Like, in my point of view, that's something that, like, the men um can't really offer.
Right.
Okay, hold on. Maybe they can, because I have seen some, like, male wrestlers that you're like, oh wow, like, you know, you're like, that's a really nice photo and stuff.
Right.
Um, but like, for women, that is like something that's different, that, you know, that women wrestlers can offer, is that, like, oh, like, you know, we'll do like lingerie photos or like bikini photos and stuff. But, you know, we're putting it out there. I feel like if you're a fan, just be respectful and appreciate that. Like, you don't need to be nasty
Right.
to appreciate it, you know? So like, for example, I posted this photo like a few days ago, and it was me, like, on the piano. Well, no, I wasn't on the piano. Sorry, I was I was by the piano. It was like a Marilyn Monroe moment. But
Right.
yeah. But, you know, like, whatever. Like, I was in my lingerie. Like, so what?
Right.
Um, and this one guy retweeted it, and then said, you know, on Google, like, how to be a piano chair, or how to be a chair, or something like that. Because I was sitting on a chair, and I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like, come on, you know?
Well, and it's just, you know, for me to you guys, let's just be better, period. I mean, again, I'm as guilty as anybody when I was a younger guy, you know, definitely before I was married, you know, the cat calls and
Yeah.
the, you know, pinching girls' bums and slapping butts and stuff in high school. And guys, we just got to be better, right? Like, if, you know, guys walk around and say there's no problem, there's no problem, which we both, I think we can both say is absolute horseshit, or there
Hmm.
wouldn't be things like the hashtag speak out movement. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Which, you know, people say like, oh, careers get ruined over it. I'm okay with that. If
Hmm.
we can, you know, here's the thing. I've only had something like this happen to me once in my entire career, where, you know, kind of a female fan came up to me after a show and just kind of like, I need 20 minutes of your time. Part of me
Hmm.
was flattered, but there's no threat in that. Like, if that lady wanted to
Hmm.
forcibly take sex from me, I'd knock her out. when a guy does that to a girl, even though he's not threatening, it's a different thing. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think that's where, I can't speak for you, obviously, but I think that for me was a really important part of the hashtag speak out movement, is that we need to get that threat away from the ladies in our business.
No, definitely. I feel like when you go into a show, right? Like we said, it is a male dominated industry. It would just be nice, to go to work and say like, oh yeah, like these are my coworkers, these are my friends, and just have that like mutual respect. Like I don't go to work and be like, and be like nasty toward men and like talk to them like a certain way. Like I just like, let's have a conversation. Like you don't need to be nasty for
Well,
me to
not
like
everything's a
you.
pickup line, right? Like,
But yeah, exactly.
and man, just so you know this, just because a girl's nice to you doesn't mean she
Mm.
wants to have sex with you. That's an important
Well,
thing to
exactly.
understand, right? Like guys think if a girl's nice to them, well, she obviously wants me. No, man, maybe she's just nice.
No. I thought we were just having a conversation, but okay.
Well, and that's the unfortunate thing is two men can have a conversation or two women can have a conversation. And on the surface, there's no hidden agenda there. Where a lot of times, and please, again, I'm not trying to speak for you, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of times when you're having a conversation with certain male or even certain types of male, you're kind of looking for the underlying part of that conversation, the stuff that's being said without being said or with a wry grin. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No.
I feel like if I, you know what I mean, if I wanted to speak to someone because I was interested in them, like they'd know,
Right.
you know what I mean? But if I was speaking to them as just like, okay, cool, like we're coworkers, we're friends, that's it. And that's like, I don't think it's that hard to really differentiate between like, oh, you know what, like this girl's actually like really into me versus like, I think she might be into me.
Right. Well, and I think there's a way, and a lot of times I've heard, like, especially during the hashtag Me Too thing, there was kind of a lot of comments made, and I'm guilty in making some of these myself, where as vulgar as this comes across, like, well, sometimes it's just, a guy's just trying to get laid. Okay, you know what I mean? So he chose a very, very crass and off-putting way to sort of, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, put his intentions out there. And there's a way to talk to a lady to see if she's interested in you without just outright hitting on her, as you'd say, be nasty. Like a simple, hey, do you want to get a coffee sometimes? No, I think, I'm busy, blah, blah, blah. That's all it has to be. Right. And then that girl doesn't have to be a bitch. She's just somebody that maybe doesn't want to go for coffee with you.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's always, there was like this, I don't know, quote or little story I found like online. I'm not sure how true it is, but like that's not the point. The point
online,
the
it's
point
true for
is,
sure.
You know what I mean? Like, but it's like the moral of the story. So this guy comes up to Hugh Hefner apparently and said, "Oh my gosh, I want to be just like you." You know what I mean? Like, I want to have so many bitches hanging around me. Like, how do you do it? And apparently Hef said, well, first of all, I don't call them bitches. Like, these are beautiful women, and like it's an honor to be around these women. And that's how I was like, oh wow, like that's like really awesome. So it's like, it's how you treat women, how you treat people. Like if you're going to be nice, you're going to get that reciprocation. If you're going to be nasty, then it's like,
well, I always say, like, I'm a trampoline. I'll give you exactly what you give me back. You know what I mean? So if you approach me and you're super nice, I'll be as nice as I could possibly be back. If you approach me and you're a douchebag, I'm probably going to tell you to get fucked fairly quickly. Right. And so, but of course, as a lady, there's that old stereotype. Well, you can't talk like that. No. If someone's out of line, I think women need to be able to comfortably say, go get fucked. And B, as men, we need to hold that other guy accountable and say, yeah, man, you heard her, go get fucked, get out of here.
I think before, when I broke in anyway, I feel like, there wasn't a lot of, women still like able to say that,
Right.
yeah. So it's kind of nice now that that's definitely evolved and we've moved forward from that, because like now it's like, okay, you know what, like I can tell you when you're being out of line. But before I felt like, I'm like, oh, like should I say something, because then is that going to cost me bookings,
Yeah.
or is that, you know what I mean, like there's always that fear. But yeah, like I feel like now maybe like I'm a bit like, okay, like if this person's out of line, I can say you're being out of line and that's not okay.
See, well, and I think that it's so important for women in particular in the wrestling industry to be able to say that without fear of repercussion. Because again, women it's a male dominated industry. And, I've not seen a lot of it for sure, but there's got to be even just a lot of greasy promoters out there that think because they book you on a show that,
Yeah.
that could lead to you'll have dinner with them after and maybe more. And it's just like where that mentality comes from, I don't understand. But at the same time, it's something that we need to breed out of this industry and as quickly as possible, in my opinion.
No, most definitely. I feel like if I wanted to go for dinner with a guy, another guy, talent or something or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I should just be able to go for dinner with them.
Right.
There's no strings attached, I guess you
Yeah.
could say.
Well,
Yeah.
That's the other thing is you should be able to just, like you say, hang out with your workmates. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like it shouldn't always be like, who you go, oh, Gisele and Jordy went for a dinner tonight. And I mean, obviously I'm married, so it might be a different connotation entirely. But
Yeah.
like go after the
But
matches.
if you weren't.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing is intent is everything. And people always want to look at what your action is like, Gisele and Durango went for dinner. There's no talk about the intention. Maybe I'm asking you for makeup advice. You know what I mean? Like
you never know.
Right? You never know why two people are hanging out. But always the presumption is, as soon as there's a lady involved with a male, especially an older male, that there's what's the word I'm looking for here? Some sort of impropriety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, why can't we just have friends? You know what I mean? Like and the other thing is, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, what's the difference between like you hanging out with another guy?
Yeah.
Like, why is it that if you guys went for dinner, like, there's no talk about it?
Yeah.
But if I went for dinner with someone, it's like, oh, do you know they went for dinner?
Oh God,
cool.
The locker room be burning up about it tomorrow, right?
Yeah. I'd be like, is it any of your business, first of all?
Yeah. Now, I think, can we both agree that nobody gossips more than wrestlers, male and or female? It's unbelievable. I didn't realize, right? Like I thought, gossip's something women do. And then I got into wrestling and realized, oh shit, like we are the worst, myself included. Absolutely. Like, what's that old saying? What is it? Telegram, telephone, tell a wrestler. Like if you want someone else to find out, just tell somebody in the locker room and everybody will find out. Yeah. Now
it's horrible. I mean, the men is just as bad as the women for sure.
Maybe worse, Gisele.
Probably for sure.
Well, because if a woman sees you out with a man, she might be like, oh, I seen you were out, you seen you were out for dinner with somebody last night. Where a guy's like talking to every guy in the locker room, like, hey man, did you see Gisele went for dinner with that guy last night? Hey man, did you see Gisele was out with that guy? Man, hey man, what happened? What'd you do last night? Oh, I think Gisele went out for dinner with a guy. Men are it's so ridiculous. And we try and deny it, we try and hide it, but we can't. It's unbelievable how much male wrestlers gossip.
It's horrible.
Yeah, they think it's called talking shit, but it's gossip.
No, it is.
Yeah.
I just stay away from it.
Well, to me, it's the most damaging thing. Like when I went to a pretty small college with a dorm, and it was amazing how gossip would literally like destroy relationships because people just wouldn't stop and ask the question, like just wouldn't go to somebody and say, hey, Gisele, I hear you and Durango went for dinner last night. What was that about? They'd rather the truth is, or the story is way more exciting than the truth ever is. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah. Oh yeah. He, I had him over. I'm going to teach him how to highlight his cheekbones a little more. Like nobody would ever think that's the conversation. Right.
No, but I just, I mean, like at the end of the day, like if I went for dinner with you, like whose business is that but mine and yours?
Yeah. Well,
and I feel like people just want to make it like their own business.
Well, people just can't mind their own business. Period. It's
No.
unbelievable. Like I have a friend, she dated a good friend of mine in high school, and I dated a good friend of hers in high school. And her and I became
Yeah.
very good friends and never actually dated. And to
Yeah.
this day, we're friends. Now, to this day, if that girl phoned me right now and said, "Hey, do you want to go for a beer?" I would know she's in trouble and stop what I'm doing and go for a beer with her. And all I have to do
Yeah.
is phone my wife and say, "I'm going for a beer with Vanessa." And that's
Yeah.
no questions asked, because she knows Vanessa's like just one of my friends. And I think
Yeah.
it brings us to your point, is it hard for men and women to have strictly platonic relationships? It is, but it's not impossible. And as long as everybody
No.
knows where they stand,
Hmm.
you should be able to, like you say, you should be able to go for dinner with a peer and not have somebody
Yeah.
casting dispersion on your character.
It's also like, people just need boundaries too, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, like your wife is like, I'm sure she's like, um, what's the word that I'm looking for? Secured with herself.
Yes.
That like if Vanessa phoned, you know what I mean? She'd be like, yeah, cool, like whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She also
Like
knows
not
I have no
everyone
game, so she's
is.
not worried.
I mean, you did get her, so like,
Yeah.
if you do
Oh,
it,
I've kept her loaded for like 25 years. She's just drunk. But well, and I think, like you say, I think a big part of it is trust, especially if you have a partner on the road, right? Like
Mhm.
I've seen numerous couples come into locker rooms over the years, and I could usually tell pretty quick, like, oh shit, yeah, that ain't gonna last. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But having said that, I've also been wrong at a time or two. You know what I mean? So it's
Mhm.
wrestling's a weird thing, but um I think it's probably a little easier when a girl has a boyfriend. And again, call me out if I'm full of shit, but if you had a boyfriend that's maybe not in the industry, it might be a little easier, because then people are like, okay, she's got a boyfriend, he's not here, or do you find, because guys are so gross, hey, she's got a boyfriend, but ha ha ha, he's not here. There's two
Yeah.
sides of that coin.
There's definitely pros and cons, with dating someone who's in the business and then someone who's not in the business.
Right.
Yeah. I do find though that even if, let's just say, if you have a boyfriend, if they're, a POS, it's not going to stop them from messaging you, because I've been
Right.
in I've been in a relationships where, like that doesn't really face people, because they're just like, they have their own agenda and they're going to keep pushing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like, it didn't matter if my boyfriend was in the business or not.
Right. So, and to tell you the truth, which to me circles back to where we kind of started this with the hashtag speak out movement, is it just boils
Hmm.
down to a complete and total fundamental lack of respect.
That's
Right.
what it is.
Yeah. And that's the only thing. My wife and I have talked about this, and I just said it boils down to a lack of respect for your peer.
Hmm.
And it's, first of all, I mean, and again, it's not my place to apologize, but I do want to apologize on behalf of men. And it's not my place to, because I obviously don't represent all men.
Yeah.
But it does bother me that you guys have to put up with this stuff. Do you know what I mean? It does bother me that there has to be a hashtag speak out movement, so you feel that we can call out pieces of shit in the locker room. Quite frankly,
Yeah.
that's the only way to call that. Like, if you're first of all, dogs don't shit where they eat. So if you're
Hmm.
wheeling chicks in a locker room, and I don't want to, if you're forcing yourself on women or taking liberties with the women in a locker room, God forbid I find out about it and you're in a locker room near me, I will ruin your fucking day. Um,
Yeah.
we need more guys like, and I'm not talking physically beat the shit out of people. Okay, I am a little bit.
Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. A good slap once in a while, because I'm
Yeah.
tired. I don't want, you know, I know so many, and I'll use obviously yourself, because we're sitting here talking about Natalia, and there was a girl, I don't know if you've ever heard a girl that came up through Stampede named Belle Lovitz, and a girl named Harmony. And there was so many really, really, I've just been fortunate enough to meet so many nice ladies in the industry. And it
Hmm.
bothers me that at some point you have a fear or discomfort walking into a locker room.
Yeah,
Like, it's,
exactly.
and I don't think I've ever been a part of it. And if I've ever done anything to make you uncomfortable, please tell me. But I also
No,
think
no.
I've kind of gone out of my way, to be honest with you, to avoid ladies in the locker room a little bit. I
No,
think
I
anytime you and I really talked, it was you coming to me saying, "Hey, can you come watch my match?" right? Because
Exactly.
I avoided it because I just never ever wanted to be that guy, right?
Mm-hmm. No, I really like one of the reasons why I wanted to, get on your podcast. Oh my God, what's wrong
Podcast.
with my accent? This podcast was that, when I was in that locker room, like you always looked after me. You're always like, oh yeah, this and stuff and whatever. And like, like you were never disrespectful at all. So when you asked me, I was like, heck yeah. Like I definitely want to be there because it's like, for me, it's like, okay, like he looked after me.
Right.
So I want to be there and be like, hey, like,
Well, and first of all, I appreciate that. And I can't tell you how glad I am to kind of hear you say that because,
yeah.
when I was in that locker room with you there, I mean, I was 40. I wasn't a young man anymore. Like most guys are done wrestling, and I'm like, I'm going to come back for a few years. And I came back, and there was, obviously a new crop of people, and you were part of them. And when I came back to that locker room, I would say fractured would be the word I would use because there was sort of what I would call there was the Edmonton faction of guys. Then there was the Calgary faction of guys that came out of the dungeon, and then there was the Lance Storm group. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was almost like these three different cliques. And so when I got there, it's like, well, one thing I don't want anybody to ever feel is that because we were really snobby about coming out of the dungeon, and unfoundedly, it doesn't matter where you trained. But at the same time, there was a lot of people like, oh, they're Lance trainees. It was like, so let's welcome them into our locker room because you never know when one of these Lance trainees is going to be the one putting us over. So treat them with respect, bring them in. And one thing I will say about Lance is he definitely over the years perfected his training because there was like a crop of students that first came out that weren't bad. But then when like you guys started coming out of the Storm Wrestling Academy, it was a different ball game. And for me, that garners instant respect. It's easy to treat you fairly when you're such a pro, you're such a nice lady. And it's, it's a pleasure to be around people like you in the industry because quite frankly, there's some real assholes. And I don't think I think we could both agree. Now, okay, so now let's move on a little bit. Let's talk about, so this is going to be maybe a weird question, but I was just thinking about this morning. How much would you say you do modeling work versus wrestling work? Like, is it simply all hand in hand for you?
So, when I was, in my younger years, I'm still young.
I was just going to say mid-20s over the hill.
Yeah, no. I did I wanted to become a wrestler, growing up. Okay. But it was one of those jobs where you think, like I'm not going to be able to do that because like these are superstars. Right. It's like going to Hollywood, it's so like, am I going to make it? Like, probably not, like I'm from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. Like who's going to come out of there?
Did you go from the Philippines to Yellowknife?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That must've been a culture shock.
No, literally. So we went, like Philippines, it's so hot. And then we're going to Yellowknife, 20,000 people. And it's like minus 40, 50 degrees.
Desolate, barren. So, you're from like a rainforest.
Yeah. And at the time, they didn't have the bridge, I guess, to get to the north. So they would have a barge in the summertime, and in the wintertime, you have to fly because there was no other way to get there.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah, I know. So,
sorry, I'm still stuck on Philippines, right to Yellowknife. That's so mean to do to somebody.
No, that was crazy. Sorry, I totally forgot my point. What was my point?
I apologize. I was like, wow, who hates Gisele that they made her do that?
No.
Oh, we were talking about you kind of the difference in modeling and wrestling, and
right.
You thinking that you thinking that somehow you're not a Hollywood starlet. I think that was what.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate that. I was like, I don't know what I was trying to make. Like, but yeah. So I moved out of Yellowknife and moved into the big city of Edmonton, right. And and did like the modeling stuff and whatnot, and then went to the gym. And it was like Richie and Nazar.
Oh God.
Yeah. Okay. So
say no more. Say no more. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I saw them at the gym, and I was with this guy at the time, and Nizar and Richie was like, hey guys, by the way. And they're like, hey, like, do you want to watch wrestling? And I was like, what kind of wrestling are we talking about? Like Olympic wrestling or like WWE style? Or like WWE style. So I was like, oh my gosh, yes, please. Like I really wanted to be a wrestler. We went to the show and I loved it like so much. So and then that's how I got started, and they said go find a training school, and like
thank
let's see
goodness
what
Lance
you can
was
do.
here, because at that time there was nobody else.
I
Right?
know. I was so lucky. And so yeah, like so I transitioned to that, and then that's all I knew pretty much is like the wrestling. But then now it's kind of weird because we're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah. So wrestling shows like halted. And like I guess like I have tapings and stuff and whatnot, with Progress here. So that's nice. And we're the Rev Pro. But before that even happened, like I was thinking like, oh gosh, like what am I gonna do?
Right.
Like what am I gonna do for a job? Because like you couldn't. But so I did Patreon and stuff, and like it just wasn't like big here, I guess, in the UK. But OnlyFans was really big.
Oh, okay. Well, there's even a lady that's made waves over here from the UK.
Yeah.
And you probably heard the story that she was I think a single mom, and she had an OnlyFans account and got fairly popular. And some of the moms in the neighborhood found out who she was and got her kids expelled from school. But of course, now she makes enough money on her OnlyFans that her kids go to a private school.
Yes.
So to hell with those bitchy moms.
Exactly. But I always like, so when I heard about OnlyFans, like my friend was like, she's doing amazing at it. She's like, oh, like you should just do it. And I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, first and foremost, I want to be a wrestler. I don't want to be like an OnlyFans. Like not that there's anything wrong with it, because
I think there's different levels of it, right? There's different versions of OnlyFans from what I understand.
Well, exactly. But for me, because I do want to move on to like getting signed.
Yeah, you want to have a higher profile.
Yeah, so I want to make sure that like for me, like I'm presenting something where it's more like Victoria's Secret rather than like, what's that, Hustlers?
Yeah, Victoria's Secret rather than Nothing Left to the Imagination.
Exactly. But to me, it's like, but if that's their niche, like that's their niche. I'm not going to judge them. Like, do you?
Yeah,
but for me, for my own brand, I was so like, I don't want to cross that line. I want to keep it like, like Diva's era, where it was like, yeah, like that was very sexy, but like it wasn't raunchy.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, like I still do that. And like it's fun because it's like it's a business, and I get to be like I'm like the creator, so it's up to me like what I'm gonna put out there.
Right. Yeah. You have total control, right? Full creative freedom.
Mm-hmm. So now I am doing a lot of that, and then also like wrestling on the side as well.
Okay.
But yeah, but like it wasn't my first choice. It was a bit crap, like that feeling where you're just like, okay, like I didn't really want to be like taking my clothes off again when I was like in my 20s, like, oh, I want to be a model, you know what I mean? Like I want to be whatever. But I mean, to be fair, I always wanted to be Victoria's Secret Angel anyway. So like so
you're kind of fulfilling both fantasy or both dreams there, really.
Exactly. So I'm just like, you know what? Like I'll just make the most of it and see what I can do with it.
Well,
but
I mean, anybody that wants to pass judgment on that can, forgive my language again. I don't have sponsors to worry about, so I can simply say they tell them to go fuck themselves. You know what I mean? Like one thing I've always found funny, and tell me if you've noticed this too, male wrestlers in particular dating strippers. Like it was almost when I was coming up, it was like an epidemic. Every male wrestler was wheeling strippers. And I kind of figured out along the way that we have a similarity with strippers, that there's kind of a kinship sort of thing, because I've always said like we sell our body too, just in a different way, because that's always the big thing. Oh, those strippers sell their bodies. Yeah, she might have sold her nudity. I sold my joints and spine. You know what I mean? Like it's
exactly.
So and that's why I say, like, anybody that wants to judge you for that can simply go fuck themselves, because it's just we all do things to put a buck in the till. Like, what's the difference? And I'll simply use my perspective. Let's say I think I have a big male following, and I decide to drop trowel, go full Monty for my following.
Yeah.
What's the difference if I'm selling my body that way, or if I'm selling my body with a shovel in my hand, destroying my back, digging holes? Somebody's gonna say, well, that's an honest living. They're both honest. Nobody's being lied to. So save your judgment, right? Just save your judgment, because I don't care what you do. We all got to do what we got to do to put a buck in the till. And if you enjoy it, more so. You know what I mean? Like, I think that a position like yours, and please again tell me if I'm wrong, but somewhat empowering. You know what I mean? Where you can kind of almost create a revenue stream simply because you understand it. You know what I mean? You know what it is.
I think for me, I've always, since I started wrestling, I've always been big on empowering women. And, it's like there's nothing wrong putting on a lingerie. Like, it's sexy. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that you should be judged for feeling like you want to be sexy. Like, I feel like all women should feel like they're sexy, and celebrate your body. And, instead of feeling like, oh gosh, like I'm being judged and stuff. Because I do still feel that way, when I'm like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing, but
well, can I assume that from a Filipino background, you were probably raised Catholic?
Yeah, I am.
So there's if there's anything I understand about, like, Catholic and Judaism in particular, they're what I call, and I don't care if people get mad, they're what I call the guilt religions. Those two are specifically, you feel bad all the time.
I mean, I'm probably, when they said like, you're gonna go to hell, I was like, yeah, I probably have a first class ticket. So
yeah, well, I'm driving the bus, right? Like,
exactly. But no, I mean, like, I did have to talk to my mom about that, because I was like explaining the situation, and then she gets it, but I was like, Mom, I just want to reassure you, like, I am not doing nude stuff on there, but like, it is going to, because she, like, sometimes like I'll post stuff on my Facebook, and then she's there and she's like, yeah, and she'll call me and be like, I saw your photo, and like, you're like showing your butt, you're in a bikini, like maybe you should put like a little bit of clothes on or something, and I'm like, Mom, no, you know what I mean? Like, if I want to post like a photo of me and my bikini, like, you should love it, because it's like, I want to be doing this when I'm younger. Like, I don't want to be doing this when I'm like 50, like, look at me, guys. I mean, like, if I was like J-Lo or Mariah or something, you know what I mean? Like, I'd be like, whoop.
Don't take this the wrong way. You will be that when you're 50. Coming from a 50, no, and that's not just me. It's coming from a 50-year-old man, right? So I've had now, well, I'm only 48. I'm not 50.
Not yet.
But I've been able to watch a health progression, because the health craze really started when I was a kid, right? When I was in junior high school, one of our favorite meals, get ready for this shit, potatoes with sauerkraut and something called side pork, which is essentially bacon with a really hard edge on it. And then you pour the grease from the side pork onto the potatoes and the sauerkraut and eat that. Do you know what I mean? By the time I was in grade 10, everything in our house was whole grains, health food, and my mom was an aerobics instructor. That's how fast it changed. So now I look at the moms when I go to, I've been going to gym since I was 16 years old, and you'd see 50-year-old moms in the gym then. And I see 50-year-old moms at the gym now, and there's more 50-year-old moms at the gym that look like you than 50-year-old moms that look like they did 20 years ago. So I think you'll be just fine, Gisele.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
Well, and the thing is too, I think one of the cool things I think about our current state, especially with women, is men in particular. I mean, I've always this is probably gross to say, but I've always had a thing for older women. So now it's really cool for me to see that women, as they get older, are actually more empowered and have embraced that kind of aging part of it. I mean, there's lots of that oil of Olay shit out there. And I don't know what any of that does, so I'm not going to knock it. But at the same time, I think it's really cool that now, at 30, you hear about these 50-year-old men getting a 30-year-old girlfriend. And now it's like a 50-year-old man wants a 50-year-old girlfriend.
No, it's pretty good. I think it's nice that women are finding like this confidence and, just like you said, like empowered. I feel like we need more of that in everyone. Like women have been, I don't want to say silenced because I'm not sure if that's a strong word for it, but
You could even go stronger, I think. I would use the
yeah,
word held down for sure. Like you could definitely
yeah,
silence probably isn't a big enough word.
yeah. Like I've been in like, I want to say like I'm gonna go normal jobs because like I know I say wrestling is a normal job, but like to
It's
other
not.
people, it's probably not normal.
It's not a normal
So I'm
job at
air quoting
all.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
most people
but
can't
I've
get their
been
head around it.
yeah, but I've been like in other jobs where I was actually a flight attendant. Little fun fact, and they literally my first day, I will always remember this, and they'll say like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, what are you doing, working here as a flight attendant?" I said, "I've always wanted to be a flight attendant. So like I'm, living my dream." And they said, "Yeah, like you look like the kind of girl that you don't really need a job. Like you look like a trophy wife. So what you
Oh
should do is
shit.
yeah." They said, "So you should find yourself a husband
Find
and
somebody to take care of you because you're just a girl.
yeah, exactly." So I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Like, thanks guys." But it's like
Wow.
that, yeah, so stereotype.
So then of
Hey.
course the so a lot of people don't know that I worked on a counseling degree when I was in college. So right away
Mhm.
that part of my brain just took over and it was like, so were those guys now offering to basically be that guy for you? That's immediately where my head goes. You know what I mean? Like those guys were essentially saying, "Hey, if you need somebody to look after you, just bring me another scotch. We'll be all right."
Yeah. Literally. No,
Yeah,
it's so weird, like where they put women like on this pedestal where it's just like, yeah, like that's what you're good at, and like
that's
that's all
you're
you're ever
you're
gonna be
there to
good
be
for.
simply to be admired,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, like, to be fair, like I do, what I mean? Like when you have a partner, like you'd want your partner to be proud of you. And
Absolutely.
and you know what? If you want to parade me around, like parade me around, like by all means, go ahead. But like be respectful about it. Like don't be like, oh yeah, like this is my girl, you know what I mean? And like
Yeah. Showing your
ah.
buddies the pictures you get.
Yeah, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like be respectful about it.
Well, and I think that's the thing is, I mean, and again, not to try and make this about me, but I'm very, very, very fortunate that I married way out of my weight class as far as looks go. Like my
Oh,
wife is absolutely gorgeous. For me, please don't be offended. She's the most beautiful
yeah.
woman I've ever seen.
Oh,
So
that's so sweet.
to me, it's important to make sure she knows she's on that pedestal, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, not to sound too cheesy, but even my daughter's like, geez, you guys are so cheesy. But
I
um,
love the cheese.
well, I mean, I hold my wife in such high regard because first of all, she puts up with me, so she's just such a patient lady. Um,
Yeah.
but I think it's important as men to make sure the women around us know they're beautiful no matter what. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like part of that empowering has to come from a guy like I should be able to tell you, hey, you know what, Gisele, you look really pretty today, without you thinking,
Mm-hmm.
Jesus, he trying to get in my skirt today. Do you know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
I should be able to say, like, hey, or even say, hey, you know what? And it's something I noticed earlier on. You're an extremely eloquent speaker. Um,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I don't throw that around. I don't throw that one around too often, but I can tell that you're educated. You have proper grammar. Do you know what I mean? And that to me is empowering too. Like, don't just tell a girl she's pretty, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
obviously a smart, articulate, warm, kind, extremely funny.
Thank
So
you.
on top of pretty, do you know what I mean? So pretty's like the base. That's just the
Mm,
scratch in the surface, right? So to just simply have guys like solely like, oh, tell her she's like pretty, it's empowering. No, make sure she knows that
yeah.
she's a smart and kind, which you are,
Exactly.
right? And it's
Thank you.
like, oh, you're
There's nothing worse, right? When you go on a date, for example. And I've been in this situation, so like I'm telling you from my personal experience, and then so you go on a date and stuff, whatever. Like obviously you want to look your best. Like why would you not want to? So
right.
you go there and then like the guy just like talks about like how you look for the longest time. And then you're just like, thank you so much, I really appreciate it. But then, it's like that's it. And then you're thinking there like, why are you not complimenting me like, that I'm smart or I'm this or something? You know what I mean? Like I feel like there's more to me as a person than just my physical appearance, because like to me my physical appearance, like that'll fade, you know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
just hair and makeup, you know what I mean? Like I'm presenting you this. When I take that makeup off, darling, we'll talk. But like you know But it's like there's more to a person, man or woman, rather than just like their physical appearance. Yeah, you should, like there's that physical attraction that's important, but like let's talk about it for like 10 minutes. And then like once we're getting, we're talking and getting to know each other more, then I'm pretty sure that you're smart enough to pick out like, oh yeah, you know what, like she's this or she's that, and then you can compliment me with other things rather than just like, yeah, that's it, like that's all you're good for.
Well, and then hopefully the guy is deep enough to recognize that, because I have a lot of friends and some of my buddies, and I love them dearly, but they're ankle deep. Do you know what I mean? So God bless them. They see a beautiful girl and they know she's smart. They know she's intelligent and articulate, but they don't actually know how to articulate that themselves. Do you know what I mean?
No, but the problem with that, I find, is that like you emasculate men almost, because like if you're confident, strong, independent woman, and then you're speaking to them and they're just like, oh my God, and then it's like, oh, like,
yeah,
that's kind of weird.
I've been accused. One of the things that's hard for a lot of people, and truth is, one of the reasons I started this podcast is I got tired of trying to have a conversation in 140 characters. And so I got accused once by some liberal lady of being intimidated by strong women. And the truth is, I don't get offended by a lot of things. That actually offended me. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, my wife's the strongest woman I know. She's the hardest worker I know. She sets the world on fire at her job. She's a leader, not just among women where she works, but among all of her peers. She's extremely well respected. So for this lady to be like, oh, you've got a problem with strong women, is like, you couldn't have misread me more. And that was kind of the catalyst for this. So for somebody to look at somebody like yourself and say, oh, well, Gisele's, she's pretty, and stop there. Well, that person's missing it, right? They just don't get it. Because
I like to be judged with like my wrestling, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, just judge me as a person. If you're gonna judge me, if you think you've got that room to judge me, just judge the sum of the parts, not just one part.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, it's
but looks, I feel like, should be like at the bottom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's more to you as a person than just your looks.
Well, and I think you nailed it on the head. Like, okay, so I dress up nice, I look pretty, I work hard on my appearance, I eat right. You know what I mean? Like, you do a lot of things to look the way you do, and that's important because it's your job, right? Like, it's not just vanity, that's your fucking job. So then to have you minimized out of all the books you've read, the cool stuff you've written, all the work you did in life, literally minimized down because you look after your body, that's insulting. Do you know what I mean? And I think as a guy, you need to look for more. Right? Like, looks will get you in the door. Like you say, you went out on a date with that guy initially because there was some sort of physical attraction, right?
Guys.
Okay. Multiple douchebags.
Yeah.
And then that'll get you in the door. But like you say, if you see a man and he asks you out and you're like, okay, he's attractive, I'll go for dinner with him. But he turns out to be a total piece of shit. Well, going back to your point, looks are only going to get you so far.
Exactly. And like, to me, it's so important. And I always say this, but it's like, if you wanted to be stimulated, that's the easy part, right. But like mentally stimulating me, like that's the hardest part. Right. Like if you can do that, then it's just like, well, like you're going to be a keeper, maybe, like, but like, yeah, like that to me is so important, rather than just like, hey, how's it going? You're hot. It's like, cool.
Yeah. Well, check. And then there's part of me that's, and I know you won't admit this because you're a humble person, period. But there's part of me that, like, we see attractive women all the time, and a guy rolls up to her and goes, "You're hot." And there's always that cynic in me that goes, "Don't you think she has a fucking mirror? She can see she's hot. You better do better." Like, I used to go to this bar called the Back Alley. And it was before Cowboys, right? Cowboys always they always had the servers.
Oh, I know where Cowboys is.
Yeah. So the Back Alley always had the hottest bartenders. When I was a young guy, they were the most beautiful. There was this one there that she could have said anything she wanted to me and I would have went home with her. Like, I just loved this bartender. But I would stand by the bar all night, not to stare at the bartender, to watch guys hit on these bartenders. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you're so pretty. Like, that's all you've got, man. And so then I kind of would like, I wonder what it would actually take, because I never seen one guy get this one particular bartender's phone number, and never seen one guy get her number. And I always thought,
Yeah.
what would you actually have to say to her to get her number? Because obviously you're hot wasn't wasn't
No.
it.
No.
You know?
It's horrible. It's like, I don't know. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but yeah, like there's more to a person than just, their looks. So come on, men, think harder, and women, think hard.
Yeah, step up our games, people. All right, let's engage each other on a different level. Right?
Literally.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, when you meet somebody, and again, speaking from personal experience, that my wife and I went on 10 dates before we kissed. Some of that was I was ending a relationship, but the other thing is we did nothing but talk for 10 dates. And it wasn't because we weren't, like, her mom actually teased her that I might just be looking for a friend because maybe I was gay.
Yeah.
So,
I could not see that at all.
Well, I mean, she's an attractive girl. If I'm not trying to kiss her, chances are I'm gay.
Yeah.
So anyways, but what I was doing was making, because I did have some baggage, I was making sure she was somebody that I wanted to bring into a situation where I did have some baggage, but also B, just make sure, I was 22 years old, and I thought I was getting to that point in life where, okay, I'm not just looking for looks. I want to make sure I can connect with her on a different level.
Exactly.
And I think that's exactly, from an old man to a young lady, that's exactly what you're saying, is like, getting laid's the easy part. You know what like people always like, oh, I want to get, that's the easiest thing, especially with the fucking dating apps now. You know what I mean?
Like if I really wanted just a quick lay, like I'd be like, okay, like I'm gonna go on Tinder or something or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'll just be like, yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah,
like
if we're just talking
not
I know
not that I'm doing that.
Yeah, we know what you're saying. Yeah. So which of these apps do I sign up on?
Yeah,
no, and it's I don't, and again, I don't want to stay on this too long because it's it's probably a conversation that's been beat to death. But I also think bringing it back to sort of the hashtag speaking out movement is, fellas and ladies as well, these are your peers. These aren't, this isn't, you're sitting in a locker room. That's not a bar stool, right? That's your peer, not somebody to be pawed at. That's your peer, not somebody to be constantly hit on. That's your peer, not somebody to be talked shit about and held down in the back because you don't like their gender, period.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, but you can say, like you can appreciate properly. Like I've been in locker rooms where I tell like, a peer and be like, man, like you've been working out? Like, wow, good for you. Like, that's awesome. Like you're looking so much better, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or whatever, or like you have really nice gear. But like, I don't really follow that up with, what are you doing later?
You want to get a coffee after?
Yeah, exactly. So, there's just the way you approach it.
Well, and I think, bottom line is, and just even to simplify it, I think it's important, even like you say, to just be able to compliment people without fear of an agenda. Like you say, I should be able to walk by and be like, hey, nice gear, or hey, you've lost weight and look better. You say, and it's like, oh, did Gisele just hit on me? No, man, she just complimented you, settled, or no, lady, she just complimented you, settle down.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So oh man. So now you mentioned you're coming up, COVID's kind of done some stuff, hurt your business a little bit. What do you have coming up? You mentioned a taping at the end of the month. Who's that for?
Yeah, so it's with Progress Wrestling. It's nice because they do stuff with WWE. So like they've actually like they're on the network.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just so cool because I've always wanted to be, obviously, like that's the dream, right? Like growing up, like WWE and stuff. I'm saying that I'm in WWE because I'm not, but like it's so cool to me to even be to be a part part of that. And it's like, oh yeah, cool, like I'm on the network, like sick.
I have one match on there, and I'll tell you, it's I call it the shoulder flex.
It's like
got a match on the network, right?
Yeah. But so I'm doing stuff with them, and it's nice because like it'll be on the network, and just because like nothing's going on right now, so it is nice, and I'm very fortunate to be one of the people that are included in that.
Right. Well, and again, that I think that all speaks to just who you are as a human. I mean, If people
Thank
don't
you.
get that from this conversation, you know, Gisele, you're one of the nicest people I've met in the business. It's
you.
always a pleasure to talk to you. So before we go though, tell the people how they can get a hold of you, all your social media, all that business. How can they keep track of the lovely and talented Gisele Shaw?
So on Twitter and Instagram, it's Gisele Shaw 08. And wait, do I plug my OnlyFans?
Yeah, plug it, plug whatever you want, plug it all.
Yeah, so I have OnlyFans. So you know what? Like, it's, if you want to see some Victoria's Secret style photos, by all means, sign up. You know.
Yeah, from a smart, articulate lady.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're going to sign off. Gisele Shaw, thank you so much for coming on the Duke You Suck podcast. It was my pleasure to have you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you later. See you, everybody.